How bullish is Bitcoin right now? That is the question that I'm going to be answering for you in this video. We're going to be looking at, is it time for a long where we are right now? Where are the next really big levels where we can have some great high probability trades? And, finally, are we about to pump up to new all-time highs? We're going to be looking at the nitty-gritty of this. I want to, though, keep it short, simple, sweet, to the point here, but professional as always. We're here, Saturday morning. I know we all got things to do, so let's just do a quick dive into the technical analysis, into the trades and what's coming up next. But first of all, to understand what's coming up next, I want to explain the reason of this low. So when we are looking at the reason of this low, I want to bring you back to the all-time high just for a few minutes here at $112,000, because price is a fractal. What happens here on the 4-hour chart happens down on the 1-minute charts. Okay, that's very important to understand. First of all, though, this all-time high that we put in, we were in a lower term time frame range, right? We had a range high, we had a range low. We swing failure pattern the range high at $112,000. So it was a short trade that I myself took. So it's a really simple fake out of the range high, and that led us from $112,000 all the way down to almost $100,000. And that all stemmed from a simple swing failure pattern, fake out of the range high on a lower term time frame range, bringing us all the way back down. You can actually then see how that support of that lower term time frame range flipped into resistance, aiding the bigger drop to the downside. So a few theories that we have going on here is support, resistance, flips, and simple swing failure pattern of the range. So that was a lower term time frame, around 5-minute time range when I was actually trading that. But here we are on a 4-hour chart, but the same theory is applying here. We have a really simple range low, right? This was clearly the range low that you'd be, pulling from over the past month or so. And this is when we're looking just at a horizontal perspective. And so what we've done is the exact same here. Just as we put in the all-time high on a bit of a fake out wick above this previous high, we have now put in a swing failure pattern wick to the downside, which if this is a short trade setup, faking out the high, this of course is a long trade setup, faking out the range low. With a simple swing failure pattern of a higher term time frame range, yes, but it's nevertheless a swing failure pattern of the range low. So from a simple range perspective, we have the range low, we have the range high, we have the range low, and now what we're going to be looking for is the range high, or that's what we're going to be answering in this video. Is it going to be going to new all-time highs next? Well, to understand that, we have to understand, first of all, the next big levels that we have above us, because when it comes to trading, my brain, not actually only in trading, but with everything in the world, is always thinking about probabilities. Is this a good risk to reward? Is this giving me a good trade, right? Now, in real life, is this worth my time? Everything literally has a risk to reward ratio. But in trading, it's of utmost importance because, this is how we succeed, and this is how we trade at the end of the day. We have to wait for high probability trade setups. So we can say, bringing it back to the short at the all-time highs, was this a good short trade setup on a lower term time frame? If you got a good entry around $11,500, target of course doesn't necessarily be the range low, but let's say even if you had an intermediate target back into the middle of the range. Is this a good risk to reward? Is this a good trade setup? Undeniably, yes. You've seen the swing failure pattern. You've got a good entry. You've got a good target. It's a good trade setup. Right, now let's take the same theory. You've seen a swing failure pattern. That's a good trade setup. Yes, we all agree. We've all just agreed that's a good trade setup. Great short trade. You had to get in on the swing failure pattern. Well, now let's think. Is this a good short trade setup? You've got the same target, you've got the same invalidation, but of course your entry is miles down. We're talking about if you are coming to the chart at this point in time. Is this a good short trade entry? Well, you've seen a swing failure pattern at the range high. No, it's not a good short trade. You are way too late. You are way too late. Entry is the most important part. So, when we talk about is this a good long for Bitcoin? Well, yeah, absolutely. If you got in at the low, you got in on a reclaim of $101,000, stop loss down below $100,000, targeting, let's say again, just the simple middle of the range. Again, you can absolutely target all-time high. I'm not saying that's incorrect, but we're going for a bit conservative target. This is a perfectly acceptable long trade. I think we can all agree on that. So now the same. If you got into the short at the highs, perfect. But is this a good long trade now? Let's say we're going for the conservative middle of the range. No, absolutely not. You are way, 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 way too late for the long trade, right? Just as even if you're targeting the all-time high, we're talking about a 1.45 risk to reward ratio, not the best. This is not a trade that we are as professionals interested in, okay? Unless you caught the low, you are too late. So now we have to move on to, okay, clearing up the perspective of would I long right now? I hope it's kind of obvious. Absolutely not. I'm not going to long where we are right now, right? In terms of a swing trade invalidation below that, just way too late to that trade. Just as I wouldn't have shorted at $106,000 here because I'm way too late for the trade. You have to wait for an increase in price. You have to wait for a new setup to form. So where we are right now, where do we have, and I'm going to first of all talk about the next big levels of resistance above us. So what we're going to do to analyze that is take a fixed range, first of all, from the all-time high down to the low. And this is our current, this is our major pivot high to major pivot low. We can see we have a point of control lining up there. And again, with point of control here, I would give it a few $100s either side. So you do not want to look at this as an exact dollar, but we can see that lines up $105,728. So that's something to be aware of. And it's all around this zone that I'm going to be referring to of around $106,000. Next thing I would do is now pull our overall range low to high. So including the new pivots that we've put in here for our new sideways channel. And that is from the low here up to the all-time high. You can see the middle of the channel is always a very, very nice level. So the middle of the channel there, you can see comes in at $106,200. And then what I'm going to be doing is adding on the anchored VWAP from the all-time high. And we can see that comes in at $106,600. I've already got this marked out for you, but we can just add on here very quickly the higher term time frame levels and the naked point of controls. You can see you do not have this lining up around 106,000. The next naked point of control above us will actually be the monthly here at 107,500. So we've got a bit of space here to work with. You can see on a lower term time frame, we've got a bit of a space here. Well, super locally, there's not any major support from 105 to 103. That's a $2,000 space of not too much in terms of support. Above us, yes, we do not have any higher term time frame level or naked point of control for another nearly $2,000 above us. So we can say we're in a bit of a space here at $105,000, where our next higher term time frame NPOC is $2,000 above us. Our next higher term time frame NPOC is $2,000 below us. So we're in a bit of a space where we need to, analyze other factors, and this is part of technical analysis. So what we can do is, just as we pulled the anchored VWAP from the all-time high, we can pull it from our current low. Look at this. We're starting to find some really nice confluence here, aren't we? Around $103,000. This is the downtrend value area low. We got which is now, of course, being flipped from resistance to support. We got the uptrend anchored VWAP. We got a daily naked point of control. So we can start to see there is some nice support around $103,000. I think we can all kind of agree with that. and above us, well, we had that downtrend point of control. We have the middle of the channel, and we have the downtrend anchor VWAP, which is making its way down. Right now, it's 106,650. Every day you have to understand that this is making its way down. So, give or take, by the time we actually make our way up to this, we would expect this to be around $106,200-ish. So locally, what I'd be looking at is, in terms of a big resistance, one that I would class as very important would be around $106,000. Again, we're giving or take a few $100s, but around this 106 is where I'm saying, for me, this is a very nice resistance level. Again, resistance doesn't mean it cannot be broken. We absolutely can. It's more than possible to see Bitcoin go through 106, flip it into support, and that is, essentially assisting a bigger move to the upside. So, these levels, you have to pay attention to the reaction. Just as I was actually looking yesterday at $104,000 as a intraday level of resistance, in the end, there was no bearish reaction there. Thus, there was no trade to be taken. You simply wait for higher, which is, for me, $106,000. And the same there. If we don't really have any major reaction there, then do think we can look towards $109,000. And it'll be the same to the downside here. We are looking at around $103,000 as a support zone. I'm not such a fan of the market structure of this, but nevertheless, we have some, okay levels of confluence around 103. So what I find kind of funny about this is this is actually the exact same range that we were trading back in this section of the chart. So if you just hide everything, and isn't it funny how trading works? That these levels of confluence that we have found from the all-time highs, from the current low that we've put in, is actually going to be lining up on the range that we were trading in this section of the chart. Because look at this. This range back here lines up where? $103,000. This range high zone, you can see, was continuously put in 106,400, 106,500, 106,800. So we can see that this zone is going to be lining up with around, look at this, the all-time high anchored VWAP, if this actually loads. Okay, you can see how this lines up very nicely. So essentially, we have moved back into the trading range that we were in for the, in total days. We were 6 days within this range, so, but basically a week, right? And then we got the bit of a fake out, and we've got back into it. And now we've just moved back into this same trading range. And this trading range, by the way, has offered some very, very, very epic trades. You actually, if you've been paying attention, know I shorted the absolute high of this range. I did short the absolute high of that range, and then I got into another short trade here, which I have closed, of course, for full profits. But this was another epic call where I had recognized $105,866 ahead of time to be the high of the day, and we actually moved into that to do the exact high of the day before bringing us down all the way to $100,000. So what I'm saying is there are some very, very, very technical trades to be put in. You do not need to wait for the exact high or exact low of this range, because just like this, you do get some nice intraday setups internally. But of course, when we talk about ranges, where are the best trades? They're at the very outer boundary and they're at the very lower boundary. And I just want to say one final thing here, and that is, when you think about it, that's the same perspective on this 4-hour chart. So again, we just looked on this section here, and we know the best trades are at the outer boundaries. So what about that? When we had the lower boundary of this range, okay, what is the best trades? Well, you could say the best longs are not around here, right? The best longs are going to be at the outer boundary of the range, and that that's just something to emphasize there, that how that absolutely does work. So whether you're on a 1-minute chart, 50-minute chart, 1-day chart, it's the same theory across the board. And that's why technical analysis is nice, because it's that same theory across all assets. Once you've learned to trade Bitcoin, you can trade altcoins, you can trade the stock market, you can trade your commodities. Of course, if you want to learn how to do this, we got it all lined up for you at Chart Champions. We have the whole educational library, everything that you need, everything that you see and more. We just got simply everything, all of the templates. We've put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours creating all this for you, and it's all in one lovely space over here at Chart Champions. And that's also where you get these live streams. So I'm talking through a daily plan, and you can see for yourself how well those daily plans work out. But this is what you can expect from myself and Igor as Severin and the whole team at Chart Champions, right? It's not just this, you've also got a whole trading community as well. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I wanted to keep it really quick. So a 15-minute mark for me is pretty quick video. So I'm going to go out today, enjoy the rest of the Saturday. So I really wanted to do this update, just, letting you know of some really important levels. When I said at the start of this video, I'll answer the question, is now a good time to long Bitcoin? Well, in my opinion, no, it's not a good time to long Bitcoin. Why? Well, because the long trade setup was, either at the low, you sniping the low, or you got to wait for a retrace. Would I long $105,000 when our big resistance is 106? No, I wouldn't do that. Okay. That's not to say Bitcoin cannot do this and go straight to all-time highs. I understand that's possible. And if Bitcoin does just go in a direct line, which I think is very unlikely, but if it just goes in a direct line vertically upwards to new all-time highs, well, then I simply would take no long trade between $105,000 and $112,000, because I'm not going to long in FOMO, a massive move to the upside. But again, I think that's very unlikely. Even if we do not get a retracement here, at some point there will be a retracement that happens. And of course, that's why you have to be aware of the more, levels above us, let's say, of where you can get pullbacks. But I do not expect it to just go vertically to the upside. There will be a pullback. There will be a new opportunity. And so whether that's here or whether that's a bit later, I just say this, I'm not going to long here. So again, not financial advice, of course, but I personally would not long here because, I'm going to wait for a bit of a retracement. Alternatively, we can get a reclaim of levels, and then you got some new lower term timeframes but set up showing. But again, that's out of the scope of this video. So yeah, I just want to do this quick video really to let you know the next levels I'm looking at, the reason of the long low that we had, you know, a bit of a fake out of the sideways parallel channel. You know, I have not shorted here. Okay, so I've not shorted here. I am expecting higher. The short that I was in, actually, these past two shorts that I'm in have been closed for full profits. So I'm in and you know, this is my final tip, I suppose, and that is you do want to take profits on trades. You do not want to get yourself into really good short trades and see massive drops to the downside and take 0% profit, only for it to bounce back up and you're like, wow, I had a really good profit, never took profit. The same on longs, right? If you're in long trades, you don't want to be in position where you put yourself in lots of profit and you never take profits, and then you see a trade, oh, thousands of dollars of profit, and it ends to losses, right? Stop round tripping trades, get into the habit of taking profits, and this will be the final thing that I refer to, because I like this tweet, and that is this, and that is what people most people treat trading like the lottery. We treat it like a profession, and that is the difference. Understand those words and you'll learn a lot. Thank you, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed. And that is me signing out. Cheers. Thank you, Anne. Hope this was helpful. If you want more, you know where to get it. Thank you, Anne. Goodbye.